9 Unsolved Mysteries of World War II. War is a strange time, and perhaps none has been stranger than World War II. From ominous sightings, mysterious battles, and ghostly planes, World War II scarred the world and left behind countless mysteries, many of which have never been solved. Now we're going to look into some of the spookiest, eeriest, and most unsettling mysteries left behind by World War II. These are some of the unsolved mysteries of World War II. Number 1. The Nazi Gold Train. The Nazi forces realized in April of 1945 that the war was almost over and that it was not going in their favor. According to some accounts, they loaded a train with Nazi treasure, including gold and other valuables looted from Holocaust Jewish victims, and sent it through the Owl Mountains, where it vanished. Some believe the train vanished into tunnels dug in the mountains as part of WWII, a Nazi-built secret facility built during the war. Despite the efforts of countless treasure hunters over the years, the so-called Nazi ghost train was never found. Number 2. The disappearance of Flight 19. While it happened shortly after the war ended, the disappearance of Flight 19 is notable in part because it contributed to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Five Grumman TBM Avenger torpedo bombers lost contact with the tower while on a training flight over that infamous patch of ocean. A Martin PBM Mariner flying boat was launched to look for the planes, which were thought to have crashed, but the Mariner also vanished. There was no wreckage or body recovery from either Flight 19 or the Mariner, and Navy investigators were unable to determine a cause for the total disappearance of 27 men and 6 planes. Number 3. Hitler's Globe. Hitler's office featured an enormous globe with a wooden base, as made famous by Charlie Chaplin in his film The Great Dictator. The globe, made by the Columbus factory, was one of Hitler's most prized possessions, but it was never seen again after the war. Some claim that a globe recently auctioned by its owner belonged to Hitler, but historian Wolfram Pobens disagrees, claiming that the globe in question belonged to Joachim von Ribbentrop. Number 4. The Blood Flag. The infamous Nazi flag first appeared prior to the rise of the Third Reich, during Hitler's failed Beer Hall Putsch of 1923. The flag was soaked in the blood of Nazi brown shirts during the fighting that followed, and it became a powerful symbol of the movement. Throughout the war, Hitler used replicas of the flag, known as the Blutfahne, or blood flag, in rallies, but the flag itself was last seen in 1944. Some say the blood-stained flag was destroyed during the Allied bombing of Munich, while others say it still exists. Many people have claimed ownership over the years, but none of them have been proven. Number 5. 17 British soldiers at Auschwitz. During excavations at one of the most notorious Nazi concentration camps, a list containing the names of 17 British soldiers was discovered in 2009. What is not clear is what the list was about. Were these former POWs or defectors who joined the SS? Furthermore, some of the names had marks next to them that seemed to indicate something, though what they indicated is unknown. Number 6. Who turned in Anne Frank? Through her famous diary, Anne Frank became one of the most well-known witnesses to the Holocaust's atrocities. Frank wrote the diary while hiding in Amsterdam, but she died in the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. While her diary shed light on many aspects of her life, the cause of her death remains unknown. Someone must have reported her, but who ultimately made the anonymous phone call that led to Anne Frank and her family's capture and execution? Number 7. What happened to the U-boat U-530? When the Germans surrendered to the Allies in May 1945, Grand Admiral Karl Donitz, who was also the head of state and Reich president at the time, ordered the U-boat fleet to surrender immediately to Allied ships or other authority. The U-530 was at the time at sea. In January, the boat received a new commanding officer, Lieutenant Otto Wermuth. The Allies had no idea where the U-530 was for the next 2 months. U-530 arrived in Argentina on July 10, 1945, and its commander surrendered command to the Argentine Navy. A trip from European waters to an Argentine port would normally take less than 2 weeks, let alone 2 months. The reason for the delay in travel to Argentina, as well as the choice of the port of Mar del Plata as the point of surrender, were not explained. The fact that the U-boat was missing its deck gun, which had been jettisoned at sea, was also not explained to the Argentine authorities. The crew of the German submarine lacked identification, which was unusual for a regime that required proper documentation from all citizens at all times. Worse, there was no ship's log or record of the submarine's activities or travels for the previous 2 months. The documents that remained on the U-boat were heavily censored. Following the arrival of the U-530, an Argentine reporter wrote of a Buenos Aires police report describing an unidentified submarine disembarking a man dressed as a high-ranking officer and a civilian at a remote spot on the Argentine coastline. This was one of many reports that fueled rumors of Adolf Hitler's escape to Argentina. Regardless, the mystery of where U-530 was and what the U-boat had been up to for 2 months has never been satisfactorily answered. Number 8. What happened to the Amber Room? The Amber Room was a chamber of gold-backed amber panels and mirrors that was built in Prussia before being installed in the Catherine Palace in St. Petersburg, Russia, beginning in 1701. St. Petersburg was known as Leningrad by World War II, and when the German army closed in on the city in 1941, they overran the Catherine Palace. The Amber Room was dismantled by German troops and transported to Königsberg, where the original German splendor of the work was to be displayed to boost morale. By the autumn of 1941, the priceless room was being rebuilt in Königsberg, and announcements describing its exhibition appeared in newspapers the following January. There is little more information available about the room. A general order was issued from Berlin in 1945 to remove looted artwork and other items from the path of the advancing Red Army. In the post-war German records, there were no reports of the Amber Room being moved, and the officer in charge of removing it to safety fled his post in the face of the Russians. The Amber Room and its fate were not discovered at the end of the war and have remained unknown since, despite a few cryptic clues. A single authenticated mosaic from the room appeared at an auction in the late 1990s, prompting experts to speculate that it had been stolen by a German soldier when the room was shipped to Königsberg in 1941. Experts are coming to the conclusion that the Amber Room was shipped to a German-built underground bunker facility near the town of Mamerki in Poland. The site has yet to be excavated, and tests are being conducted to determine what contents may be hidden there, but results have been inconclusive thus far. The Russians shrugged and began work on a new Amber Room, a 24-year project that was completed in 2003. The new Amber Room has been placed on display near St. Petersburg, which the Russians claim is its rightful and proper home, in part because the original Amber Room could not have survived more than 70 years of improper storage. The original's whereabouts are still unknown. Number 9. How did so many Nazi criminals escape? By early 1945, Germany's infrastructure of railroads, highways, air routes, and canals was in shambles, making even legal travel difficult. Allied troops occupied major travel hubs, and frontline troops and military police scrutinized the documents of any Germans attempting to travel, whether fleeing the war or going about their legitimate business. Despite the fact that Europe was as tight as a drum, hundreds of Nazi officials, escaping war criminals, SS officers, and others managed to flee to South America. Even before the war ended, ratlins were established and operational, providing a pipeline for escaping Nazis to Argentina, where they were welcomed by Juan Perón and other safe havens. There were two main routes established, one through Franco's Spain and one through Italy via Rome and Genoa. They began independently, but eventually came to collaborate. Both received Catholic Church support at their destinations and along their routes. Within a year of the war's end in Europe, Spain was littered with thousands of former Nazis. Including several hundred wanted for war crimes, and efforts by the U.S. State Department to obtain the Vatican's support for handing them over to the U.S. were futile. With the covert assistance of the Catholic bureaucracy in Spain, Portugal, and Argentina, including Argentine Cardinal Antonio Caggiano, these refugees fled to South America from Spain. In the winter of 1944, the Vatican Secretariat of State established a liaison in the form of Bishop Alois Hudel, the rector of a seminary for Austrian and German priests in Rome, to support the German interns in Italy. Numerous Nazi war criminals obtained the credentials required to legally travel to South American countries, where they were welcomed as Catholic immigrants, through this liaison office. This route was used by war criminals such as Franz Stengel, the former commandant of the Treblinka death camp, Gustav Wagner, the commandant of Sobibor, and the infamous Adolf Eichmann. By 1947, and at least until 1950, the U.S. Army, through its own and other intelligence services, was actively working with these and other Ratlins to evaluate suspected Nazi war criminals rather than handing them over to the Russians for trial. Faced with the embarrassment of holding Russian wanted prisoners, the U.S. Army allowed them to flee Europe via the Ratlins, often with open assistance. There you have 10 unsolved mysteries from World War II. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe so you won't miss any future videos.